Ukraine crushed rare Russian Torf-S command system. Artillery reconnaissance units detected high-value Torf-S, enabling its destruction by friendly fire assets. Operators from Ukraine's 15th Brigade detected and helped neutralize Russian Army-level command and control communications system known as Torf-S. Footage of the combat operation was published on the brigade's YouTube channel, confirming the successful targeting of the system. Subscribe to Defense Report, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military defense news. I'm out. Join me with Arya in the latest podcast about Defense Report, sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of defense news, military technology, developments, and technology. The staggering strategic fallout of kinetic communications assets so rare and critical, the Russians only deployed a handful of them. The Torf-S station.
Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack the immense significance of one very recent, very targeted tactical victory. We're talking about the destruction of Russia's rare Torf-S communications station by Ukraine's 15th Separate Artillery Reconnaissance Brigade. But we're not just here for a war report. We're using this single event as a lens to explore the high-stakes, invisible war being fought every second in the electromagnetic spectrum, or EMS.
Exactly. I mean, when you successfully target and destroy a system like Torf-S, it's not just about removing a vehicle from the battlefield. You are essentially punching a temporary hole in the Army's central nervous system. We really need to look at why this specific piece of equipment was so valuable. And critically, how this incident fits into the larger evolving narrative of electronic warfare, a conflict where Russian capabilities have been, well, both shockingly ineffective and at the same time alarmingly adaptable.
The core theme we keep seeing here is vulnerability. We're going to cover how a critical system designed to communicate across hundreds of kilometers was utterly destroyed because it couldn't move. An astonishing failure of operational security.
It speaks volumes about the quality of Ukrainian ISR intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and just their ability to act fast. That failure point opens the door to much larger questions.
It really does. And then we're going to pivot to the other side of the story. How Russian counter-EW forces, which were initially criticized for these catastrophic failures like jamming their own units, analysts called it EW fratricide, and using unencrypted phones, a lesson they absolutely should have learned from 2008. How did they manage to adapt so effectively?
Well, the adaptation phase is the real shocker here. I mean, they went from total operational chaos to degrading advanced Western supplied precision weapons. We're talking about Excalibur missiles taking their accuracy from over 50% down to well under 10%. That is a staggering swing in battlefield effectiveness.
So stay with us to understand this invisible war. It's a strategic chess match being played between old-school radio physics and 21st century microchip warfare. Okay, so let's unpack this victory. For someone new to military tech, what exactly do Ukraine's 15th Brigade hit? What makes this Torf-S station so critical?
The destruction of the Torf-S is significant because of its role in the command hierarchy. It's an R412 command and communication station. Think of it as an Army-level asset. So, to put that in perspective for you, losing a simple tactical radio might disrupt a squad. Losing the Torf-S, though, that impacts higher-level coordination. It can create communication blackouts across entire operational areas. This is a strike against the brain of their large-scale movements.
So if it's such a high-value target, why is a technology from the 1950s still so vital? I mean, we have satellites and fiber optics now, right?
You'd think so, but the Torf-S is crucial because it uses tropospheric scatter, or troposcatter. And that's the genius of its old design. It's a method that lets microwave radio signals communicate way beyond the line of sight. It does this by bouncing signals off turbulence in the troposphere.
So it's literally using the atmosphere itself as a kind of a mirror to send messages over the horizon.
That's the perfect analogy. This atmospheric bounce gives it ranges up to, say, 500 to 560 kilometers. And in modern warfare, when your satellites get jammed or cyber attacked or even shot down, long-range terrestrial backup like this is exceptionally high value. It's Russia's insurance policy against losing their space-based comms.
But the sources we're seeing highlight how really devastating vulnerability it is otherwise using the system.
They do. And it was its undoing. The system can only function while it's stationary. To operate, it has to set up these huge antennae, which makes it a fixed target for as long as it's broadcasting. Ukrainian artillery reconnaissance units detected it, most likely using electronic intelligence, to pinpoint that massive energy signature it puts out.
And because it couldn't just pack up and hide in a few minutes, Ukrainian assets were able to coordinate and deliver a precise, destructive strike.
That's the critical takeaway. This operation shows a major advantage for Ukraine. Its impeccable coordination between their ISR, their eyes and ears, and their strike elements, finding a static, high-value target and hitting it before it can power down and disappear. That's the hallmark of an intelligent, adaptable defense.
So that brings us to the bigger picture, right? This whole deep dive is really about electronic warfare. How do we even define that in this conflict? It feels so invisible.
Well, EW is really the capacity to manipulate the entire electromagnetic spectrum. It's about being able to sense, protect, and communicate, while at the same time denying those same things to your adversary. Russian military doctrine in particular, it sees EW as a key capability. It's how they plan to achieve what they call electromagnetic superiority, especially against NATO's network-centric warfare.
And they have that famous, frankly chilling doctrine that summarizes this whole ambition.
They do. The aphorism goes, attrit a third, jam a third, and the final third will collapse. The goal is just disorganization, paralysis. Jam their comms, disrupt their GPS for precision strikes, and neutralize their protection systems.
So before 2022, Western analysts had these incredibly high expectations for Russian EW. They thought Russia had a really steep learning curve from past conflicts. What did they see that made them so confident?
They saw continuous improvement. I mean, you look at the war in Georgia in 2008, despite huge failures like using unencrypted cell phones for command, a colossal mistake, they were learning. Then you get to 2014 in Ukraine, which was a real proving ground for them.
And that's when systems like the Lear-3 UAV made a huge impact, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The Lear-3 was used to great effect. It successfully jammed commercial cell networks, it tracked troop movements for artillery, and, well, notoriously, it was used to send demoralizing text messages directly to Ukrainian soldiers. That sophisticated, integrated approach really gave the West the impression that Russia was ready to dominate the EMS.
But when the full-scale invasion kicked off in 2022, the initial results were anything but dominant. So why the massive underperformance? It shocked a lot of people.
It wasn't really a technology failure. The gear was there. The failures stemmed from systemic issues. We're talking poor logistics, bad intelligence, and a really rigid deployment doctrine.
Let's start with that structure. The Battalion Tactical Groups, or BTGs.
Right. Russia's reliance on the BTG structure was just counterproductive for EW in that chaotic opening phase, especially around Kiev. BTGs were too big, too slow. They couldn't coordinate the kind of complex, overlapping jamming attacks you need. The front lines moved too fast.
And then there was that embarrassing comms failure. They went right back to the phone.
It was a shocking regression. They repeatedly used unencrypted 3G and GSM phones for tactical coordination. This basically allowed Ukrainian forces to eavesdrop on them in near real time. It led to ambushes, catastrophic losses, and a critical lesson we just didn't learn from 2008.
The resulting chaos led to what some analysts call EW fratricide. That phrase just quickly captures the mess.
It does. The initial jamming was so intense and so badly placed that they negated the EMS from both sides. They were jamming their own command structure. Commanders got disconnected from their troops, forcing some Russian units to use, well, tactics from World War I, like literal runners or mailmen to pass orders.
Wow. Imagine being a commander relying on a mailman in a modern war zone. That's a total breakdown.
It is. And finally, the landscape around Kyiv was a problem. They struggled to isolate military targets from the dense civilian network there. It was much easier in the rural Donbass back in 2014.
But as you said, Russia course-corrected. By November 2022, they shifted to an attrition strategy. How did that let their EW finally become effective?
The shift to attrition stabilized the front lines. It let them deploy their EW assets statically, covering set sectors instead of racing around. And the sheer number of Ukrainian drones, we're talking tens of thousands a month, forced them to adapt and prioritize local defense.
So the necessity of countering all those drones drove innovation.
Precisely. They started rolling out anti-drone equipment everywhere, from handheld jammers to vehicle-mounted systems like the Shapovnik Arrow. They also learned from the BTG failure, breaking them down into lighter, faster company groups to disperse their EW systems, making them less vulnerable.
And this is where we see that dramatic impact on Western tech. How did their adapted EW affect Ukraine's precision weapons, like the Excalibur missile?
The results were stark, and it forced a major strategic pivot for Ukrainian forces. Russian units began using their heavy EW systems, like the Krasuka 4, much more effectively to create these huge protection bubbles. They were targeting the guidance signals of Western munitions. For a GPS-guided weapon like Excalibur, this means signal flooding or even GPS spoofing.
Spoofing. So tricking the missile into thinking it's somewhere it's not.
Correct. You send it false GPS signals and the missile impacts miles off target. The documented result was just shocking. The accuracy of Excalibur dropped from over 50% down to well under 10%.
Wow, that's a drop of more than 4/5 in effectiveness. That must have forced them to completely rethink how they use these high-tech Western arms.
It did. But Ukraine also showed incredible resilience. They leveraged secure systems from the West, like Sinstijar radios. They used frequency hopping, which is highly resistant to jamming.
And we can't forget Starlink. That's been a massive game changer for Ukrainian defense.
Absolutely. Starlink provided reliable internet and comms across the battle space, even though it was targeted by Russian cyber attacks. Russian military authors are already trying to figure out how to counter it. They're suggesting things like high-power lasers or creating clouds of interference to blind the satellites.
It sounds like a permanent contest for control, what experts call frequently changing bubbles of control. Nobody ever achieves total supremacy.
It's a daily duel of patches and counter-patches.
So let's circle back to where we started, the loss of the Torf-S. That was an army-level brain shot. But it's just one example of Ukraine successfully taking out these rare, expensive Russian assets by exploiting their vulnerabilities.
The sheer scale of the losses, if you look at open source intelligence like Oryx, is staggering. Over 20,000 documented pieces of equipment lost since 2022. It's a massive strain on their hiring.
Let's connect a few of the biggest losses back to this theme of command and control.
Okay, so in aviation, losing two A-50 long-range detection aircraft, that is critical. These are their eyes in the sky. A base model costs around $330 million, leaving them severely delayed their surveillance. And then the first ever confirmed loss of a Su-57 fighter jet, their flagship 5th-gen platform, that's a massive blow to prestige.
And what about at sea, like the Moskva?
The flagship Moskva at an estimated $750 million, and the Rostov-on-Don attack submarine maybe $300 million. These are assets meant to project force, not be sunk by adaptive coastal defenses.
And on the ground, the specialized equipment losses seem to have a huge impact.
Absolutely. Multiple S-400 Triumph air defense systems have been destroyed. And back to command and control. The destruction of that ultra-rare vehicle, the Ladoga. Only 4 of those were ever known to have been built. Taking one out leaves a massive, irreplaceable gap.
What's so fascinating about all this is that it often seems to come down to Ukrainian ingenuity defeating sheer technical superiority.
That's the recurring theme, isn't it? I mean, we saw a modern K-52 Alligator combat helicopter, a platform touted as armored by Russian sources, destroyed by a Stupniki, that's an anti-tank guided missile, a weapon designed to kill tanks. It just underlines the level of improvisation and innovation being applied. Nothing seems impossible.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The destruction of the rare Torf-S perfectly illustrates the strategic impact of this EW war. It shows that even Russia's most resilient communication systems have these critical physical vulnerabilities that Ukraine is just adept at exploiting. The vulnerability isn't just in the equipment, it's in the doctrine used to protect it.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the conflict shows the true nature of modern EW. It's not a technological race you can just win. It's an endless cycle of patch and counterpatch. Russia failed badly at first, but they adapted quickly to degrade sophisticated Western weapons. Ukraine, though, maintains the high ground of ingenuity and operational security. And this raises a really important question for military planners everywhere, especially in Europe. In a world of increasing EW intensity, how much can you truly trust your high-tech, interconnected systems without also having robust, low-tech, decentralized backups?
That is definitely something for you, the learner, to consider as this conflict forces the military world to rapidly rewrite its textbooks on command, control, and electronic warfare.
Indeed.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.